Beach Ball. I'm a cynic, and I'm here to insult your intelligence. Who doesn't love Batman? He's one of the most iconic superheroes of all time. And his films consistently push the envelope on how to make a comic book movie. They're dark, they're edgy, and they give us some of the most fun we've ever had at the cinema. But let's not forget, every time something is taken seriously, there's always going to be a parody. I mean, just look at this. There are plenty of examples on YouTube alone of people mocking Batman. And the funny thing is that these movies are produced and loved by Batman's own fans. But there was one series that started this whole Batman parody trend almost half a century ago. I'm of course referring to the 1960s Batman show. Starring Adam West as Batman and Burt Ward as Robin, the show took a less than serious approach to The Dark Knight. Which is funny because it came out the exact same year as Star Trek and The Green Hornet. Two shows that took themselves far more seriously than they probably had the right to be. It was a show built from the ground up to be a parody, and for the cast and audience to have fun. Which is probably how they were able to get so many big-named actors to star as villains in the show. They had Frank Gorshin as the Riddler, Burgess Meredith as Penguin, Cesar Romero as Joker, and even Roddy McDowall as Bookworm. That's right, Roddy McDowall played an original villain in the series called Bookworm. You can't make this stuff up. And because of the show's popularity, a full-length movie was quickly in the works. And it was a big hit with the fans. However, over the years, people seem to be asking the same question. What the hell were they smoking? So let's don our capes and cowls as we look at the 1960s Batman the movie. The film begins off with a multicolored spotlight flashing by to reveal our main cast. It's a huge step up from the TV show's intro and feels like the natural progression from TV to cinema. We then got to Batman and Robin heading out to investigate a call for help from a yacht headed towards Gotham, owned by a one Commodore Schmidlap. They head to the Gotham airport to pick up the Batcopter. Okay, I know the movie just started, but why is the Batcopter all the way at the airport and not in the Batcave? I mean, could they not fit it on set or something? Once they make it to the yacht, Batman attempts to board it. But at the last possible second, it turns out the whole thing was a hologram set to lure Batman to a trap. And what supervillain trap would be complete without sharks?
Shark still looks fake.
You know, it's funny, this film came out a long time ago, and it still looks more realistic than Jaws 3D. But not to worry, Batman made sure to bring a can of shark-repellent bat spray.
Never leave the cave without it.
Sorry. It's my equivalent of a Vietnam flashback. After Batman is freed from the shark, which explodes upon hitting the ocean, he and Robin attend a press conference to answer questions about their latest mission. Funny, considering the dynamic duo were the only ones to see the vanishing ship or the exploding shark. But I think the better question is, how the heck is Batman's leg still attached considering it took Robin forever to bring him that bat spray? I think that warrants an explanation. After the reporters leave, Batman, Robin, Gordon, and Chief O'Hara begin to discuss the whereabouts of the real Commodore's yacht.
You mean, while they were luring you to a watery grave, the Commodore's yacht was being hijacked someplace else?
Precisely.
And nobody thought to tell the Commodore about this? They deduce that there are currently 4 super criminals that could have been responsible for the attempt on Batman's life. The Penguin, the Joker, the Riddler, and Catwoman. How did they come up with this? Well, they're the only ones that are out of prison right now. But between you and me, my money's on Bookworm.
Pretty fishy what happened to me on that ladder.
You mean where there's a fish, there could be a penguin?
But wait! It happened at sea. See? C for Catwoman.
But you spell C, S-E-A. A. A is a Canadian expression. Canada is the world's largest supplier of maple syrup. Syrup is sticky. Sticky like a broken egg. It's Humpty Dumpty! Nah, that's stupid. Through similar deduction, they realized that all 4 of them could very well be working together. But not sure about this, Batman and Robin decide to do some digging. Meanwhile, one of the reporters named Miss Kitka makes her way to a bar at the Gotham docks. It is soon revealed that it was Catwoman all along and that she is indeed working with the other 3 criminals.
You and your trained exploding shark.
Who goes out of their way to train a shark to blow up? That seems like a one-trick gimmick.
Why, you sniveling sardine?
Are you pompous, puffed up penguin?
Our friends make peace. Have a shake on me. Ooh, a joke a day keeps the gloom away.
Reminds me of high school. A funny fact though, this is actually the first time outside of the comics that we've ever seen 4 supervillains united against Batman. Remember the episode Almost Got 'Em from the animated series? A lot of fans praise that as their favorite episode. And it's all because of the villains. It's the interaction between these characters that most people remember.
Half of me wants to strangle you,
And what does the other half want?
to hit you with a truck.
We used to date.
Well, this was the original. And whereas a few of the characters and their interactions are different, it's still a joy to behold.
She shall lure some millionaire into a kidnap trap.
Of course, with a clever clue pointing here. Oh, which will make Batman race to the rescue.
The entire movie could have been about them, and I don't think I would have been bored.
Scratch out their eyes.
Take away that ravenous panther.
So help me, Catwoman, I'll feed him to the birds.
The interactions are a blast, and it's really fun seeing them make fun of each other's flaws.
You silly bird, they've just been through one of your fishy explosions, and they're still in one piece. Indeed? And I suppose they'll be broken up by your moldy joke.
This is funny because usually when a movie tries incorporating more than one villain, it tends to lose focus and the film suffers for it. Meanwhile, Batman and Robin head to the Batboat to investigate why the yacht from earlier disappeared. However, as they drive to a mysterious buoy, they are spied on by a bird-shaped periscope. And in the immortal words of the Penguin,
Great quivering icebergs.
I'm so making that my Facebook status. With a flick of a switch, the Penguin uses a magnet buried inside the buoy to grab a hold of Batman and Robin's utility belts.
The fiends! They've converted this buoy into a gigantic magnet. It's got us by the metallic objects in our utility belts.
Alright, this may seem like a stupid question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Why don't they just take their belts off and escape? Things begin to go from bad to worse as the villains begin to launch torpedoes at them. But don't worry, Batman has a plan.
If I can just reverse the polarity.
I'm sorry, reverse the what?
The polarity.
Polaroid?
The polarity.
Huh?
The polarity.
What?
The polarity.
What?
Super energy reverse polarizer.
Fuck it, I'm out. Batman is able to destroy the first few torpedoes with his Bat Radio. But as the final torpedo closes in...
Confound it! The batteries are dead!
Damn Energizer Bunny! You lied to me! The final torpedo impacts and it looks like the dynamic duo has met a watery fate. But as the villains surface to look at our hero's watery remains...
We missed!
Actually, Mr. Worf, it's worse than that. It turns out that a porpoise swam in the way of the final torpedo. And they said my powers were stupid! Who's laughing now, Batman? After being assaulted by a submarine, Batman calls up the Pentagon's 1-800 number to find out if the Navy has sold any surplus submarines recently. You know, there's a joke in here somewhere about the US selling weapons to dangerous people, but it's just too easy. As it turns out, the US Navy is run by idiots. Damn it, you're making this too easy! And they have indeed sold a submarine to a character named P.N. Gwyn.
P.N. Gwyn?
The Penguin.
Oh, you don't say, Robin. Naturally, Batman voices what everyone in the audience is currently thinking.
Disposing of pre-atomic submarines to persons who don't even leave their full addresses.
Good day, Admiral.
Gosh. Hey, this is the 60s, you watch your language. But just as Batman hangs up on the Pentagon, a missile is launched into the sky from the submarine. And since it's the Riddler at the helm, it leaves a riddle in the sky. Later at the police station, they investigate these riddles. Now, are you sitting because I'm about to play 2 of the weirdest riddles you have ever heard? Okay, play.
What does a turkey do when he flies upside down?
He gobbles up.
And number 2.
What weighs 6 ounces, sits in a tree, and is very dangerous?
A sparrow with a machine gun.
I suppose it would have to be a very light machine gun, but, you know, whatever. Since it is clear at this point that the villains are working together, Batman deduces that their only objective could be to take over...
the entire world.
Of course!
So yes, the criminals are planning to use Commodore Schmidlap's invention to dehydrate and kidnap the UN Security Council in Gotham City. Then they'll hold the council members ransom on their secret island until the UN sends them the money by carrier pigeon. And if you think that sounds like something from a comic book, congratulations! You've been paying attention. However, I don't really understand why they feel they need to keep Commodore Schmidlap as a prisoner in their basement. Fed up with Batman and Robin's consistent meddling, the Riddler comes up with a plan to lure them into a trap. First step is to acquire the perfect bait. So Catwoman dresses up as Miss Kitka and tells Gotham's most eligible bachelor that the Riddler is planning to kidnap her. Batman and Robin set a plan in motion. Bruce Wayne will have dinner that night with Miss Kitka, and Robin and Bat-Alfred will follow closely behind in the Batmobile. The thing is, Batman makes sure that Alfred has his driver's license because Robin's not old enough to drive. Funny, considering he flew the Batcopter earlier. But what's funnier is Bat-Alfred is wearing a mask to hide his identity, and yet is still carrying his driver's license with him. I mean, can you imagine how embarrassing it would be if he got pulled over? Mr. Pennyworth, what are you doing in the Batmobile? You're not Batman. But as the night goes on, nothing appears to be happening. It starts to become a chore as they wait for the Riddler to make his move. Even Robin's calls to the Commissioner are boring.
Yes, Boy Wonder.
About to pass Benedict Arnold Monument.
Whoa. Benedict Arnold Monument? How is it nobody on the internet has commented on this yet? By the end of the date, it ends up back in Miss Kitka's apartment. And as she's laying one on Bruce, Robin gets grossed out and decides to turn off the screen.
Is that true, Master Robin? Our instructions were to keep watch.
You know, funny thing is, Alfred has never struck me as a pervert.
I am about to be utterly and madly carried away.
No, wait, Bruce, you've called the Admiral!
It's a trap!
This is a kidnap! Our joke's on you!
To be fair, I actually like the action in this fight scene. It's some of the best choreography Channel Awesome has ever turned out. Robin finally decides it's time to see if Bruce has made it to second base yet, but is shocked to find that the place is deserted. Bruce wakes up to find himself a prisoner of the supervillains. But with his mind still fresh of memories of last night, the first thought he has is of Miss Kitka.
Show me Miss Kitka, or I'll wreck this place with my dying.
Oh god, Bruce, no! Bruce is able to break free, and we get ourselves another fight scene as Bruce makes his escape. Bruce returns home to find a very surprised Dick Grayson and Commissioner Gordon.
Come on, Dick, we're late for that important demonstration of the fish hatch. Roger. Excuse us, Commissioner.
Wait, that's it? You just got home after being kidnapped, say you were saved by Batman, and you leave for a demonstration at the fish hatchery, and you don't even take a shower? Alfred, stop this man! Batman and Robin return to the hideout, only to find that the place is deserted. But the villains did leave one parting favor for them. The following scene is made of pure cinematic gold and 60s cheese as Batman runs all over the docks trying to get rid of the bomb.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
And it's not just a staple of the 60s Batman. I am convinced this scene is solely responsible for Vicky Vale breaking up with Bruce between movies.
You kept things from her.
No, told her everything.
Big mistake. But to be fair, just talking about this scene doesn't do it justice. You really have to see it for yourself. However, Google hates me, so you'll just have to take my word for it. Thanks, Google. After Batman is able to dispose of the bomb, he and Robin come to the realization that they have no leads as to where the villains are. But sure enough, the Penguin has a plan to deal with our heroes.
To deliberately trick Batman and Robin into inviting me into their secret Batcave with 5 dehydrated, death-dealing pirates at my command.
Yeesh, Pengers, how corny can you get?
Ahoy there! Could you chaps direct me to a policeman? Commodore Schmidlap's the name. Big Ben Distilleries, you know. My name's Schmidlap, old boy. Schmidlap.
There are no words.
Holy costume party, that's the Penguin.
The plan is so stupid it doesn't even work! Batman and Robin continue to ponder how they can prove that it really is Penguin.
There's one method of identification which no criminal can evade.
Retinal eye patterns.
Robin, I have a slight feeling he can overhear us. So they decide to gas Penguin and bring him to the Batcave. Why? I don't know. They know it's the Penguin, and even if they were wrong, Commodore Schmidlap is missing, presumed kidnapped. Taking him to police headquarters would be the best option. But whatever, they get there, the Penguin rehydrates his cronies, and the fight is on!
Attack him, you faltering thing!
Okay, that was pretty weird. Let's see if I can recount exactly what happened. So it turns out that Penguin accidentally used heavy water to rehydrate his goons rather than regular tap water. And somehow that caused them all to pop like firecrackers? Makes sense. So Batman and Robin let Penguin steal the Batmobile so they can track him to the gang's new hideout. As they're tracking him, one of Riddler's missiles clips their wings and it looks like the dynamic duo is going down. But the Batcopter crash lands, of all places, on a bed of foam rubber. What? You expect me to comment on that? What did you want me to say? Have you been watching this movie? The Riddler's missile leaves two new riddles for Batman and Robin, telling them exactly what the villains are planning.
An egg. Make applesauce.
A unification.
United World Organization.
Precisely, Robin.
How do you function?
So our heroes race to the Security Council meeting on foot. However, the criminals made it there first.
Rack Shalom. No solamente en Europa. Pour votre attitude belligérante. A cool. Man public.
Gentlemen, it is the considered opinion of Her Majesty's government.
You know, the funny thing is, I bet this is how a lot of the UN Council meetings go. But Batman and Robin arrive to find they are too late and the criminals have already escaped. Batman and Robin make it to the Batboat and the chase is on. The villains detect them and try fighting back. But the dynamic duo are ready this time and are able to counter everything the villains throw at them. Once Batman and Robin get close enough, they begin launching depth charges, hopefully forcing the villains to surface. That's right, Batman is using depth charges to hunt a submarine. Need I remind you two bozos that the survival of the entire world rests on the survival of those glass vials which are currently rocking back and forth thanks to those depth charges you are shooting at the submarine? Oh, what the hell? But they're successful and they board the submarine for the final showdown. The fighting kicks off and I have got to say, it is glorious. The over-the-top action combined with the comic-like whacks and pows and the kick-ass score make this one hell of a climax for Batman and Robin's first movie. It's just really sad that their next outing together would result in this.
Sexual fantasies.
Oh, right in the childhood. Ugh. After the fighting is over, Batman and Robin enter the submarine and are shocked at the realization that Miss Kicka was really Catwoman all along. This causes Batman to have an existential crisis. Bats, you spent an evening with this woman. At the most, you spent 5 hours together. You had dinner, you spent an hour in the park, you saw her home, you got blocked. Why do you care?
What can I say? Chicks are my kryptonite.
But whatever, Batman and Robin have the Security Council and the day is saved.
Oh, where's my tea?
Oh hey, he's still here.
What the devil is this? The captain's costume party?
Oh, so that's why the villains are keeping him around. Back at the Batcave, Batman and Robin attempt to descramble all the dust particles and hopefully return the Security Council to normal. How do they plan to do this, you ask? By using their super molecular dust separator, of course! But the separation was successful and we're ready to rehydrate. Batman and Robin set up the vials on these funny looking stands and the Security Council is rehydrated. However, there is one question I have that has bugged me since I was a child. What the heck happened to the metal rods after the Security Council came back? Because, as heated as this argument is, I think they would have noticed a 2-foot spike shoved up their ass. But whatever, the world is saved, Batman and Robin exit the window, and the movie is over. So that was the 1960s Batman movie. I love it. I'm not going to try and convince you if you disagree with me, but I think that the Adam West version of Batman is probably one of the best ever. This version of the iconic superhero is right up there with Freakazoid and the Tick at knowing that it's silly and embracing it. But you have to admit, the ones who did this the best were, of course, the villains. The villains were half the fun of the TV show, and to the joy of all fanboys everywhere, they spend most of the movie interacting with each other. It is a genuine pleasure watching all of them reacting to each other's goofy quirks while remaining in character. This is ironic because one of the biggest problems a superhero film can have is having too many villains. This movie never suffers for it. In fact, I would argue it's one of the best parts. And like I said, this film has 4 major villains in it. That's more villains than Spider-Man 3, Amazing Spider-Man 2, X-Men Origins Wolverine, and Batman and Robin. The music in this movie is also really good. The music in the scene where Batman tries to board the yacht really builds up the suspense. The music during the torpedoes scene also helps build up tension as you wait to see how Batman and Robin are going to escape. The funny thing about the Security Council meeting is each member is actually talking about how they need to work towards peace. But because they won't shut up and listen to anyone else, the shouting just continues to climb. It just goes to show us that sometimes people are more interested in being heard than listening. But by far, one of the deepest points of the entire movie is actually when Batman and Robin are working with the dust. Robin makes the suggestion to Batman that they should try and tweak with the Security Council so they can see eye to eye on a few things. And Batman's answer is a damn good one.
It's not for mortals like us to tamper with the laws of nature. Indeed, in this very Batcave, you saw a ghastly example of what happens when one tries to do that.
That's a really good lesson on playing God. Most movies would have the villains messing with things over their heads and the heroes stopping them. But this time it's the heroes who are considering trying to be God. I'm just saying it's an interesting take on the moral. This film may not be as serious as the Nolan films or as epic as the Burton films, but I think it still has a place in the Batman Hall of Fame. I'm a cynic, and people are stupid.
We've all got our superheroes, that's for sure. A Superman, Spider-Man, and the Cape Crusader. But there's only one man that stands above the rest.